father? Can I forgive my mother and all my mother's mothers? Can I forgive? Can I forgive? Can I forgive my mother? Can I forgive my brother and all my brother's brothers? Can I forgive? Can I forgive? Can I forgive my brother? Can I forgive my sister and all my sister's sisters? Can I forgive? Can I forgive? Can I forgive my sister? Can I forgive my sibling and all my siblings' siblings? Can I forgive? Can I forgive? Can I forgive my sibling?
A reading from the Gospel according to Luke. 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, they crucified him there, along with the criminals, one on his right, the other on his left. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they divided up his clothes by casting lots. The people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him. They said, "He saved others. Let him save himself, if he is God's Messiah, the chosen one." The soldiers also came up and mocked him. They offered him wine vinegar and said, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was a written notice above him which read, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God?" he said. "Since you are under the same sentence, we are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus answered him, "Truly, I tell you today, you will be with me in paradise."
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here today. Physician and trauma expert Dr. Gabor Mate says, "I don't advise people to forgive. I do the opposite. I say to people, before you forgive, allow yourself to feel the full anger that's in it, that's in you. Let yourself fully experience the anger that's there, because once you do, it'll dissipate. You'll let go of it. So don't do it in order to forgive. Do it in order to liberate yourself. So forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for yourself." When I hear the words of Jesus, while in the midst of agony and suffering, he calls out to his Father to forgive. I find strength in this action. This radical forgiveness reveals to me the unrelenting capacity of a human person to love ourselves despite the harm others try to inflict on us. This gives me the courage to share some of my own story and the struggle to forgive my own father and my journey to finding compassion for him and for myself in the name of liberation and ending intergenerational trauma. I remember standing in my dad's kitchen about 10 years ago, and I tried to tell him that I decided to forgive him. It was a sweet intention, but what came out instead was a lump of tears and words that were trying to push their way through a dense knot of cuts and bruises. It was a brave step for me, though. At least I wanted to. I hadn't yet let myself feel the fullness of my anger. I had not let myself feel the pain and sorrow of a connection I had wished was different. My dad's name is Marty, Martin Joseph Paul Weber. And like many daughters who have dads, I wanted to be just like him. I wanted to like what he liked, and I even remember as a child wanting to eat the same portion sizes that he did. My dad loves the outdoors. He has always been a person that knows the woods and the best person to go on a hike with. If it is that you want to stop and get detailed descriptions of everything around you and also a history lesson, which as an adult, I want more of that than I used to. My dad has always had something to point out, something that he wanted other people to notice about the woods, the trees, the birds, the weeds. And I think in some ways he wanted us to notice him too. I got the sense over time that he wanted us to notice how much he knew about the trees because he had spent so much time with them. My dad is a falconer, and all my life has raised pigeons in our yard. Oftentimes, I'd come home from school to a dead chipmunk in a baggie thawing out in the bathroom sink. Food for the hawk. Or if the red tail was injured, it might just be in a perch in the corner of the kitchen with a leather hood on its eyes. I'd tiptoe by, hugging the cabinets. I knew that the birds were limited in how far they could go, but it begged of caution to be in such close quarters with something so wild. My dad affirmed after decades as a falconer that birds of prey could never be tamed, and they could fly off at any moment and feed themselves again. He couldn't tame the wild out of them. They had talents that could kill, and even though they relied on him for food, if he turned on them, they'd turn on him. While interviewing my dad about what his birds taught him over the years, he recounted that they are from the wild and they can just as well go back to the wild. My dad has always been annoyed by humans projecting their emotions onto wild animals. I'm not sure if this was a defense mechanism to shield himself from the many times he took his anger out on our dogs, or because he had relationships to these animals, to these creatures that gave him insight that I didn't understand. Maybe he wanted us to know that it's okay to be wild. It's okay that sometimes we aren't friends, but that doesn't mean we don't still admire each other, wonder about each other, look at each other in awe, and care about each other. My dad also said that he always loved hawks, and he felt terrible when he made mistakes with them. So these relationships were not void of emotion. I didn't realize then that wanting to be like my dad also meant the insecurities, the anger, the self-doubt. I got all of that too. I realized at some point I saw him like he saw his hawk, unpredictable, willing to defend his life at any cost when threatened, hungry to get back to the woods, unsure if or when he'd sink his talons into the things around him. Not because he wanted to, but because that's the way he was, the way he was taught to be. As I got older, I questioned the ethics of falconry. You trap and cage a wild animal, and then you force it to depend on you for its food supply. You train it to know that without you, it won't eat. It's all about weight, he says. Fly your bird when it's not hungry and it will fly away. They came from the wild and they will just as well go back to the wild, he says. They don't need you. You have to make it hungry to some degree so that it can rely on you. But the interesting thing to me is that over time, the hawk can come to trust the human and go along with it. But only if there is a gradual trust that's built. My dad says that the whole relationship with the hawk is built on trust. and a betrayal might never be forgiven. You never call a bird to your fist when there's no food in your glove, he says. If you try to touch their legs before they're ready, they're going to put their talons in your hand. So you need to slowly build trust by their feet before you just reach in there and try to change the jesses. A jess is a thin strip of leather used to tether a hawk to a perch. It was fascinating to me to hear my dad talk so eloquently about the trust he was so careful not to break between him and his bird. I wasn't as jealous as I was relieved. It made sense how hard it was to forgive, how long it takes to build trust back when it's broken, and how fragile our relationships are. My dad was the type of person who would feed you roadkill for dinner and then say, "How was the chicken?" with a smirk on his face. He didn't explain to us before he turned our pet bunnies into furs on our nightstand. Not all of his relationships did he treat with the same level of caution. Maybe instead of being like my dad, I should have aspired to be like the hawk, holding strong and fierce boundaries around trust, sinking my talons in anytime trust was broken, not tolerating being lied to, screeching if I was tricked. My experience of my dad is that he was often shy to share his knowledge and wisdom with us. What could have been an opportunity to try some squirrel felt like a trick. Just one example of many. There was no choice, there was no consent. I don't think I would have rejected the opportunity to try it, to share in something he wanted to show me. But it was like my dad rejected himself before we had a chance, thereby killing the chance for connection and the lacked precious trust that he knew was so fragile. As a child, I was not a hawk. I could not fly away and find my own food. We all know the phrase, hurt people hurt people. I broke my hip when I was 12 and I walked with crutches for 3 years. I knew not to complain, that it wouldn't get me anywhere, but my sisters and parents sugarcoating my experiences and telling me everything was fine. No one knew how to hold anyone's pain or anger or sadness. It just boiled on inside of us. Instead, we armored up, we turned inward, feeling more alone, isolated, and unworthy. I hit my younger sister with my crutches when she wouldn't listen to me or help me. I yelled at her and I guilted her into helping me. It was awful. I've never been so sorry about anything else in my life. She was my best friend, the person I admired and I wanted to be close with, and I abused her to get so that I wouldn't be left alone. I just wanted Gina to stay with me. She was outgoing and seemed to be fearless. I guess I trusted her more than my parents. And that's a lot to ask for an 8-year-old. Forgiving my father is forgiving myself too. It's looking at and recognizing how pain is passed down, how it works. Forgiving, feeling our pain. It's about trying to stop the cycles of violence in its tracks. To go inside, to acknowledge our wounds and to sit with them, feel them. And then when we have the courage, admit, confess. Confess to the ways we've done similar things to the people we love and let the truth set us free. Let the truth that we never meant to, the truth that we were scared, the truth that we were doing our best. He was taught to be callous, to see his knowledge as inferior and not good enough. He was told that he wasn't college material. He was told that he was a loser by his father. He was told to be a master of the woods, not a lover of it. He was taught that nature is for man to do what he thinks is best with it. And interestingly, he also talks about how much he hated what the white man did to the native people. I can hear the tension rising and falling as he spoke about it. He was taught to be a victim of this world and to stay down, He was taught to turn off his sensitivity, the warmth he tried to offer his own father in moments when he saw him suffering. He was pushed away and mocked, made fun of, and shamed, trapped between his hunger for spiritual union and the lessons of his fathers. After my Uncle Bob died a couple years ago, my cousin reached out to ask for some spiritual care. She said she was just realizing how much abuse she thinks she experienced growing up, that she never understood. She said she went to a medium who told her that her dad had a message for her. He said, "I'm so sorry for everything I did, that all this pain that I caused you. I was trapped." My cousin had her own interpretation of that, but to me it confirmed a theory that I had about the most angry and abusive of men around me, that maybe they were also the most sensitive ones, who cared deeply but were trapped by the beliefs of our fathers. The beliefs that came from the very churches, the images of God, the ultimate parental figure passed down from generation to generation, caging us like wild birds so that all we thought was possible was to sink our talons into those around us to survive. If we're lucky, as we become adults, we have the opportunity to redefine the relationships with our fathers, our physical and our spiritual ones. We have the opportunity to move from dependence on our parents to dependence on ourselves and our God. Our spiritual hunger grows and our provisions become fed by something and someone who is not temporary, but something infinite, permanent, and everlasting. I want to dedicate my work at United, my work of reconstructing Roman Catholicism and the ways of being, to my father, to my grandfather, and to the line of my male ancestors whose love for this beautiful green earth was taught out of them, and who didn't have the chance to love their wives, their children, their parents, their pets, or the woods in the deepest and most life-giving ways that they should have been able to. After listening to my dad's story, I see more of his wisdom, and I am changed by it. He saw that his relationship with his bird was mutual. He and his bird were a hunting team. He supported the bird by feeding it physical food, and his bird in turn supported his need for spiritual sustenance. As he said, "For me, being in that union with the bird out in the wild was a spiritual feeling of myself being one with nature." I've come to see that this falconry is ethical in my eyes. It may have been a sacrifice of the hawk, but it saved a life and it gave life to another being. Who am I to say that the hawk didn't want that for him? Here's some of the wisdom that my dad has to offer humanity from his life being in intimate relationships with birds of prey. And as you might notice, I am a lot like my dad. We both have a lot to say about communion and the relationships between food and spiritual sustenance. And this is something I feel proud of. In as much as someone would crave or need spiritual food or God, it's a hunger. It's a different kind of hunger, but it's the same hunger or need. We can go and have that need fulfilled and we're good for another week or day or however often we get hungry for it. So I'm making a correlation between all of our needs and hunger. We eat a meal and we're satisfied until we need another meal. So that intensity comes and goes with our need. It's like being in communion with the bird when you're on the hunt. I'm attuned where she is at all times, and she's in tune with every step that I take. In that tightness, we work together. In that spiritual sense, it's kind of like the heat of prayer, this intense togetherness. It doesn't last all day. We get our food or our communion, and then we go about our lives. But during that time, there's a very intense togetherness. Amen. I'm just going to invite us into a moment of reflection. I'm going to play some hawk sounds, and just invite you to do whatever you need to do, close your eyes or just be present with the sounds. And if you're willing, I'd like you to join me in saying the Our Father. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory. Amen. We'll close with a song that was one of my dad's favorite songs, and the first artist that I can remember being me thinking like that's mine now. Like I really love this for myself. My life, I'm a lot like you were. Old man, look at my life. I'm a lot like you were. Old man, look at my life. 24, and there's so much. Live alone in a paradise that makes me think of two. Love, love, such a cost. Give me things I won't get. Like a coin that won't get tossed, rolling home to you. Oh man, take a look at my life. I'm a lot like you. I need someone to love me the whole day through. I wanna look in my eyes and you can tell that's true. Lullabies, look in your eyes, run around the same old. Doesn't mean that much to me to mean that much to you. I've been first and last. Look at how the time goes past. But I'm all alone at last, rolling home to you. Old man, take a look at my life. I'm a lot like you. I need someone to love me the whole day through. I want to look in my eyes and you can tell that's true. One more time. Oh man, take a look at my life. I'm a lot like you. I need someone to love me the whole day through. And look in my eyes and you can tell that's true. Oh man, look at my life. I'm a lot like you were. Oh man, look at my life. I'm a lot like you were. May we remember our need for prayer, for intense togetherness, and listen when we're called to be fed. May we go in peace to love and serve. Amen.